The Navigating Disability podcast often discusses topics including disability, injury, mental health, and mentions of sensitive issues such as trauma and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care while listening. Today, we're joined by Kris Hammons, an inspiring speaker, husband, and father of 4. Born with a rare form of dwarfism, Kris was told he wouldn't eat, talk, walk, or live a normal life. But instead of being limited by those predictions, he turned them into fuel for a life of purpose. Now based in Nashville, Kris shares his journey of perseverance, humour, and resilience, helping people everywhere turn their limits into leverage. We're so excited to dive into his story today. Welcome, Kris.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate and Jen. I'm really excited about this conversation.
To be honest with you, you are the first person that we've spoken to with dwarfism. So this is really new for us. So we're looking to
Awesome.
you to guide us about what you would like to know. Tell us about your life's journey.
Yeah, I was actually born here in the States, but in Dallas. Just had a birthday, so going on right at 42 years ago. It was one of those things where my mom wasn't sure. They knew something was up. Of course, this is 1983, so the tech that they had then wasn't what we have now. And it was, for her, it was a complete surprise, and it was a surprise for the medical team. She did have a rough pregnancy, but it didn't seem like it was anything that was going to affect me until I was born. And so I was born and right away whisked away to a nearby children's hospital. And really quickly, all they really knew was that I had dwarfism and that they weren't really sure how much, but they knew I had some sort of hearing and vision loss. And so those two things, well, really 3 things. So those 2 things, plus I had a cleft palate, which meant that I didn't have the roof of my mouth when I was born. And so there was some fear about having to lay me up, keep me on my stomach so I didn't swallow my tongue. So there was initial fears, and I think took everybody by such surprise that they weren't really sure what to do or what to make of it. And so I entered the world and really there was nothing but questions. And really from there it was a lot of getting answers while trying to keep me alive. Because they weren't really sure if I was going to make it. I was 4 weeks premature. We don't believe that really had any bearing on anything. That just happened to be my mom also had some prior issues with having healthy pregnancies, right? So it wasn't believed that any of those things were linked, but they just weren't sure. So really, I come into the world, all they really knew was dwarfism. He has some vision loss and hearing loss, and obviously the cleft palate. So the goals really were simple, like figure out what's going on and you know take care of the cleft palate as soon as possible.
And is the cleft palate the one that where they were concerned that you wouldn't be able to eat?
Yeah, they knew right away, like, okay, it's not safe to feed them. And so they had put in a stomach tube pretty early. I'm not sure what it's called in other parts of the world, but here we call it a G tube, a gastrointestinal tube. So that was inserted pretty quickly, where they also discovered that I had some other gastrointestinal issues, and that all flared up within the first 6 months. In fact, there's pictures of me being 6 months old, and I look very frail, look very weak, very thin. My mom described it that you could pick up my skin and see through it. It was so thin. Like that was how she described it. And so they knew right away that they had to take care of that. So right after getting the G tube, they had to turn around and do a procedure that basically helped me keep food down because I was a failure to thrive already on a smaller end, some for obvious reasons, some for not so obvious reasons. And so they discovered that they did this other surgery that they could kind of keep food down because while the G tube was great for getting food in me, I really struggled for the first 6 months keeping it down. So the cleft palate, along with some stomach issues, yes, definitely led to some eating problems.
So what did your childhood look like? So once they stabilized you and
Yeah.
everything was looking good and well, what are your memories from childhood?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, it really didn't stabilize out. It's good. Now I'm processing in real time here. It came in waves, right? Like, so I had the initial scare, they do the stomach surgery. Then they start to learn more about what's really going on. My mom goes to Johns Hopkins, where they actually declared me like, hey, we don't have all of our head around him yet, but we believe he will never walk talk. Like that was actually where that came from. I actually have a written report where you see mental retardation. So there was, for a long time, going into years, there was a lot of questions
Yeah.
and a lot of theories, right? And also just kind of one surgery after another. I had in-home nursing for a couple of years because I would just at random, my heart rate would flatline
Mhm.
for no apparent reason. And so there was that complication. My earliest memories, one of the first things I remember is actually having chest surgery because as I got into 5, 6 years old, they realized that my chest was actually too tight and compressing down onto my lungs, and they were concerned about breathing and all, obviously, the vital parts that your lungs play and heart beating, all of that. So they had to go in and break the sternum, lift it up with a bar, and sew it all back up. So I remember waking up from that surgery. So that's some of my earliest memories as a 5, 6 year old. Spattering memories of that, being taken home from the hospital. But most of my memories, even in those days, were at home, being a kid like everybody else. Just knowing that I had to stop every now and then and go have a surgery.
Yeah.
School, what were you treated differently at school?
That didn't really come into play until I was about almost into high school. And the few things I'll call out on that is the schools I went to up until about seventh grade or junior high were really good about educating any class I was in. In fact, talking about childhood memories, I remember if I was in a new school or a new class, and my parents moved around a lot, so there was that dynamic too, which would impact any childhood. Anytime I was in a new friend group or class, that school or class or teacher would do wonderfully by just having us sit down like, well, hey, let's talk about it. Let's not pretend it doesn't exist. Let's, you know, see what we can learn. And so that I think really curbed a lot of like bullying. Obviously, we didn't have social media, so the terms of life for me was a little different. Yeah, that came about, and I tell you what really spurred it on. It really didn't have much to do with my height. It had more to do with, I remember some kids would get really irritated because part of my type of dwarfism was fine motor skills. So I would write slower. A lot of times I would get modified homework assignments. Hey, everybody else do this many math problems. Oh, you get half of them. And so that really irritated you kids. So if I
Mm.
I would get bullied on occasion, but it would be for that. Most of the kids were pretty receptive.
Which is really interesting because without even trying, the teacher is separating you and
Right.
and drawing out that you are different.
Right.
So that
Right.
absolutely,
And with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
that's
Um,
right.
and she was, it was not any malintent at all.
No,
But you're right. She also set the stage of like, okay, well, this cat over here, he's different. Let's make sure we, you know, talk about it, right?
which is fine if
And
there's five or six people that are all
right,
different. But when
right,
it's just one, you're really isolating that
right.
person.
Yeah. And the schools I went to, at least a few of them were known. And here in the States, a lot of states have it to where only one school in that particular district will have like a special needs program. This is like mid 90s. I don't think the support systems were in place like we have today, right? Playing field's a lot different. So the class I went to, or not the class, the school I went to was one of these schools. But to your point, they were often in a class by themselves. And high functioning students could go and start their day in that class and then go on to a non special needs class, if you will.
mainstream. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So in moments of self-doubt, how did you cope with that? Did you put how did you scaffold yourself in that environment?
I think as a young kid, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, we have heard
Um,
that as well a lot from our.
right. It's like, I don't, uh, so I think as all the way to maybe 6, 7 years old, I just thought like I was everybody else. I just had surgeries, no big deal. Even like having glasses didn't really stick out to me. But I do remember very vividly, actually, the moment of like self-realization. I can see it like it's yesterday, looking out my parents' back patio glass door and seeing my own reflection, and something switched in my brain in that moment. Like, oh wow, wait, other people see me differently this way. You know, I'm living through inside of this experience, right? But everybody else sees me as this little kid, not just little, but little. The way I coped with it, I don't know, and I don't even know if in that moment it was like a startling thing. It was just like, oh, that's weird. Right. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, okay, I'm different. Okay, awesome. Move on. Probably different seasons in my life have included coping in a number of different ways. Some not so healthy, but the healthiest of copes for me have been, especially as I've gotten older, is just being open about it and not talking about it. I'm trying to think like, because I really believe that the path to coping in a healthy way is sharing with a trusted, safe community and being able to not just acknowledge something, but like the facts of something, but also just calling out like how you feel about it in a moment. Like just like have had seasons even recently, like just came out of a season of having hip replacement surgery, which we can get to that, but all related to my dwarfism. And I have had a strong group of other guys in my corner who I can just go to and be like, yeah, this really stinks.
And
This is not fun.
are they people that are like you that have dwarfism, or are they other people?
No, they're other people, which we do have a community of people with dwarfism that we connect with as well. So definitely we those are the people who really know it, right?
That's right. And
Um,
that's what we're hearing
and
is find your tribe, and then
right,
you feel connection, which is what we all want.
right. And there's different types of connections. Obviously we can sit. Of course, now I have the unique perspective of having not only lived this journey out, but now I have children who are living this journey out. Same with my wife. She also has dwarfism. Obviously, we have a small tribe of other parents of children with dwarfism, so we've had those connections. My 8-year-old goes to a special needs therapy clinic that we've gotten to know a lot of families there. So there are definitely those tribes, some which we have created into a safe space to talk through, like, hey, this thing really sucked over here. And I didn't, I was really hurt by this thing that happened last week, that sort of thing. The other piece is like, if you can find that group if they don't all look like you can help a group build awareness, but also become more relatable by sharing that thing. Because I think a lot of people who are not like us, no matter what it is, they just assume, oh, I can never relate to that person,
We don't
right?
understand.
Mm.
Yeah. And you may not understand that specific thing, but you can at least relate to, like, I've had things happen to me that I couldn't control. It was the core essence of what a disability is. You woke up or had something happen to you that permanently disabled you, right? Or even temporarily. I have this experience all the time. I'll see somebody that is actually have a coworker that is in a wheelchair, and my heart breaks. It's like at some point, like he he was able-bodied, and then had a illness that brought about this paralyzation, right? And it's like, man, they know what life was like, right?
Mm.
What life can be like.
Yeah.
Right. You know? And so I can't relate to that loss.
Yeah.
I can't grieve that kind of loss that you can, but I can relate to know what it's like to like have something happen to you that you couldn't
You mentioned
control.
You mentioned before the good coping mechanisms, and you said you'd had some bad coping mechanisms. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, when I was a teenager, I think that was probably the worst season in terms of coping, but definitely sought attention in a lot of the wrong places, especially with the rise of the internet. It can be easy to be somebody that you're not behind a keyboard, and the rise of chat rooms and talking about things you shouldn't be talking about when you're 13 years old. So I've lived that, right? That was certainly a bad coping because I had no idea how to talk about it.
Yeah.
So my unhealthy cope for throughout most of my teenage years was trying to be somebody I wasn't because I found this online world where height didn't matter. And so, yeah, and that could have taken me down a path that could have been very destructive.
So, what would be your best advice for people that feel stuck in their circumstance?
A story, can I share a story? I
Absolutely.
usually
Absolutely.
use, yeah. So I mentioned I have a couple of children with dwarfism. 8-year-old, he actually has two types of dwarfism. I don't think I even went into it, but like dwarfism has over 400 different types. I have one type that's more rare, which we talked about. My wife has a much more common type. And our third child actually had both my type and his type. That combination is not unheard of, but usually when it happens, it's fatal. So he spent the first 10 months of his life in the ICU,
Oh, bless.
intensive care.
Yeah.
And he had an artificial airway put in. He, you know, had one day where he flatlined 8 times. And we've hit this place where it's like, okay, we don't know where he's going from here. Like, he's like, he's not gonna. I remember him saying he doesn't have the lungs to sustain life. And out of hope. And a few weeks before that moment, he was very much on a roller coaster. Like he would have a good day, bad day, a good 3 hours, and a bad 2 hours. It was just an up and down ride, right? And I remember, and what we would have to do about once a week was we would have to leave his room and go to a waiting room. And they would clean all of the IV tubing that he had. And he had a lot because he had just had his tracheostomy. And when they do that, they have to sedate you, keep a baby sedated so that they don't pull at the new airway that they've just installed. So his issue was, hey, every time we keep trying to take these sedatives off, he crashes. And so we had a really rough couple of weeks with that. And so they'd send us into another room. We had some family in town, and we sat there for some amount of time, usually about an hour. And we were both pretty spent. Like we were exhausted mentally, physically. We still had two kids at home that were, let's see, it's 2017, that were like 5 and 3 at the time. And I remember getting up, or they came back and got us, and they said, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hammons, you can come back and see your son." And you know, we're people of faith, but we were struggling. We just didn't know what was going to happen. I remember my wife. I get up to go back into his room to leave the waiting room, and any other time, my wife is right there next to me or right behind me. But I sensed she was not anywhere near me, so I stopped, turned around. She's still sitting down. I'm across the room at this point. And I went back over to her, and you have to know my wife, like she's a very like high driver, like let's just get stuff done, let's solve the problem, rule the day, right? She's not an emotional person. She looks at me. I went back over to her. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And she said, "I don't know whether we need to have hope that we're going to take our son home or just it's time to let him go." And something hit me. I don't know if it was divine or not. It just, the words came to me. But I looked at her and I said, one way or another, this son, our son's going to leave the hospital. He's going to leave the hospital. He's going, and it may not be how we want, but he's going to leave. Our job is to be there and show up. So what I encourage people is the season, the day, even if it is a chronic disability that will never go away, the day is going to end. Tomorrow's going to, a new sun's going to rise. And our job is to show up because there's someone else out there that needs your story, needs your voice, needs the community that you can build. So that's really what, like, that's it to me.
Yeah, show up. You've said it perfectly, really. It's we have to be our own advocates.
Right.
And, so yeah, show up. It's as simple as that. I love it.
It's simple and the most hard thing you'll ever do.
Mm. And how is your
Because
son now?
oh, he's great. He's 8 years old. He gets all the attention and knows it, which is a little unfortunate. No, it's good. He's a good kid. Our family's doing great. He's doing awesome.
Yeah. And 4 kids, absolute champions. I've got three.
I
I don't
know.
know if I could cope with a fourth. So you're doing well.
Thank you.
With the dwarfism, I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's a genetic link
It
with
is.
you and your children. How did you come to the decision of having children, knowing
Yeah.
that were they definitely going to have dwarfism?
It breaks down like this. At least the latest research I know about is it's even though we both have dwarfism, it was always going to be a 50-50 chance that they got one either or. So our oldest son is average size. He's 13. He's like probably 5'3" already. So he's a big dude, which is great because he can reach all the things we can't. It's awesome. Highly recommended if you need to reach things. Just have a tall kid. Anyway, we always knew there was a chance. We looked at it and it's like, okay, the chances, so it's 50% either or, 25% they'll have both, which is the riskiest part because, like I mentioned, it's usually fatal. It was pretty rare, even at 25%. The couples that we had talked to or we had heard about, it just didn't happen. We had heard of a couple of instances. Yeah, so make sure I'm getting that right. 50 that it will, 50 that it won't, but the other 50, half of that is that it will either have just one or have both. And that can be a scary thing. But we were determined to live the most normal life we knew how. And we knew that if it were to have dwarfism, we would be best positioned. We would be able to parent that child or children, in our case, uh, in a way that we never got parented because we had lived through that. Now everybody's experience is different, right? My my 8-year-old and 11-year-old are living very different lives than what my wife or I did. So they have to walk through that too. But I'm at least thankful that we get to be there alongside with them.
So do you find that your wife and yourself growing up was a safer environment or a more kinder environment than your children are going through? I'm just really interested
No,
to, because
it's
you've
it's a
had to
really good one.
navigate it and now your children are navigating it. So
But I
just,
think it's
Right,
also a very different time.
yeah. So
It's
right,
I'm
it
just
may have been
intrigued as to,
Yeah, it may have been safer, but then the fact that you have such lived experience that is
right.
invaluable for your children.
I would say in our kids' example or lives, we probably expect a little bit more from them because we are less likely to take the excuse of like, "Mom, I can't do it."
Yeah.
Like, well, no, I did it, so I know that you're at least capable. I'm going to coach you through it. I'm not going to put anything on you I don't think you can do. At least I always say to my kids when they're challenging doing hard things, like, just give it a try. If you don't, let's talk about it. Or if you try it and you don't like it, whether it's a new sport or a new whatever, right? In terms of their lives, if they put up a fuss about, well, I can't do this because of that, it's like, well, okay, I was there and I know what's possible. To where our world is we were always the underdog growing up.
hmm.
We
I
both came from
don't know. I don't know that it's about expectation or more about wanting them to reach their potential because they have
right,
so much potential
right,
if they're taught the right way.
And I think
exactly,
perspective too.
Mm.
There's a
right,
different perspective because mum and dad, we've lived through it. So you can't use that on us. It's
right,
like,
right.
no, no.
We've been here.
We've been here,
Right.
been there, done that.
Which I would hope, speaking of like safer environments, I would hope would help them feel less lonely than maybe we did. Both my wife and I came from average sized families. All of our siblings were average size. All, our parents were, they, you know, while they loved us and did the best they could with us, they still don't know,
Mm.
right?
They'll
They can
never
relate
fully
without having,
understand.
right. They can relate by terms of like they know what it's like to have a child with special needs, but it's about where that journey ends. In the same way that I'm connected to a few people where I've followed their journeys similar to our son. Their journey didn't end so well, and I remember feeling the sadness of like, well, now our journeys take a break off because you're experiencing something I, you know, never would want or will experience. And so there's a value in having someone that's been there. There's an extra challenge that like there's things aren't going to slide, and we can hopefully be there for them when things get rough and see it, right? Because there's a difference between the child that goes through a hard time and a parent can naturally just sense it like something's up, and I can usually kind of see it. Like we're experiencing this with our 8-year-old. He's starting to realize just how small he is. And just to give you some context, because he has both types of dwarfism and he had a growth hormone deficiency, which is not really a dwarfism thing. On top of the dwarfism, he's very small. Like he's the size of maybe a 3-year-old.
And he's
And
eight.
he's starting,
Is that the
yeah,
8-year-old?
he's 8. Yep. And he's starting to feel it. The other day we were out to eat, and this is kind of how we parent. This is probably a good story to summarize how we parent, for better or for worse. He was at a play place at a nearby restaurant, and I'll never forget. He runs out to me and says, "Dad, this also tell you a lot about him. So a kid in there, he called me ugly." And I just without thinking about it, I just looked at him and said, "Well, do you think you're ugly?" And he is so confident. Even though he's starting to feel his size, he's so confident. He looks at me and says, "Well, no." And I said, "Well, okay. Well, it sounds like you have all you need. So why don't
Oh,
you go in
good.
and go back in there, and if you want, go tell him how it made you feel. Mom will go back in there and just let him know that you didn't appreciate it. Maybe this will be a learning opportunity for him." And he's like, "Okay." And he marched off and did his thing, right?
That's
You're
so
building so much confidence in your kids. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, some of it I am, others they just have it. It's like,
Yeah.
it can be, even though he can be the size of a 3-year-old, he becomes presence can be larger than life sometimes.
Oh, look, I'm sure he gives the eldest one a run for the money.
Well, so the oldest one is actually him and our 8-year-old are the most alike. So a lot of times what happens is the 8-year-old, because he can't reach the thing he wants to reach, and maybe reaching it means he's getting into trouble. Our oldest son's named Noah. He'll be like, "Hey Noah, can you get that?" And
Oh,
he'll like
cheeky.
we'll hear him whispering like, "Hey Noah, get that thing over there." Yeah. And then he'll start laughing because he knows he shouldn't be doing what he's doing.
and he's not going to
And
get in
then
trouble because you wouldn't think that he could get it.
right,
No,
right,
cheeky.
or yeah, exactly. And then the 13-year-old will be like, "What? I don't know what happened. He couldn't. Out of my hands."
Chris, what barriers have you faced due to your disability? Have you faced any?
I think we all have faced some sort of barrier, right? So I don't want to say nothing, and maybe I'm just in denial, but I can't think of anything. Like
Can you think of
I
any that your children would have faced?
I don't know if this is a barrier, but one thing I've always struggled with is I grew up in a world where I was taught by actions, not words, that being the quietest person in the room was a good thing. So for a long time, I never knew how to speak up. And what I didn't know is that this dynamic was playing out where I would just be pretty quiet to myself. Yet people would see me and be like, "Whoa, he's different. I want to get to know him." And so if there's been a barrier, if something I didn't have really didn't realize was a barrier, was I've had seasons where I've struggled building meaningful relationships. Not because I don't want to, but because I've been so quiet and I look serious and I have to remind myself to smile, not because I'm not happy. It's just I'm usually thinking of something or solving a problem in my head, right? So a big barrier has been two opposing things, which is I walk into a room and I immediately have a presence. Not because I'm big in the room, but because, oh, this guy's got a story and we want, like, something's up, right? And mixed with I'm very quiet and serious. And those two things together really made it hard for me to, like, to realize that, oh, wow, I'm coming across way more serious and way more, like, self-centered, maybe. And,
Standoffish.
right. And that's not even who I am. Like, I'm totally all in and let's go have a good time. I'm just really quiet about it for a lot of different reasons. Actually, my hearing loss plays in a role in that.
Oh,
Why? Because I have hearing aids. And so I live in a world where big groups of people, while I love being in them, it's hard for me to have a one-on-one conversation because I can't zero in on that person. So I've had countless encounters where I meet somebody in a group experience, and then it takes weeks, if not months, for the person to actually realize, oh, wait, he actually does like me
mm.
and he wants to interact with me. I've had good guy friends I have now that would laugh to this day, like, I thought you hated me, you know? And it was really would be someone I was looking up to.
So, who's been your greatest source of support and inspiration along your journey, Kris?
I would have to say, obviously, I'm a person of faith, so I'll say God, but on this earth, my stepdad. So my mom got remarried when I was, good grief, 8, 9 years old. And I had a relationship with my biological dad. It was very in and out. I think looking back, my situation probably overwhelmed him. He just didn't know how to face it. And as a kid, you just don't know. Like, I didn't know that as a kid. I figured that out later when I was an adult, right? Another dynamic that played out with, then that left me and my mom and my sister. She gets remarried, and the guy she gets remarried to is 17 years older than she is. That's important because he has not just a dad, father, not becomes just a father figure, but a bit of a sage voice in my life at a very early age. That he taught me a lot of the very simple principles of, like, you just got to keep going on. Like, he was a American country boy in all senses of the word. Very different personality, very outgoing. He was all about hard work. He taught me a good work ethic. And he even challenged me in ways that I didn't realize he was challenging me. And in ways that as a kid, I actually interpreted that he just didn't understand or he just didn't know me. That later I was like, he didn't know it, but he was challenging me to go beyond what I even thought I could do. And a good example of that is that he came from a world of, he worked road construction his entire life. And when I got older and became able to work, he had no clue what I was going to do. And I'd actually had talked about at that point I wanted to do some speaking. And in his mind, he couldn't figure out how or what I was going to make that happen and how even somebody got paid doing that, much less, like, do it, let alone make money at it, right? He said what he thought and what came to mind. And so he would just tell me, I don't know, I'm just really worried. I don't know what you're going to do when you get older. You can't shovel, you can't dig a hole, and you can't do all these physical things. And it wasn't that he was looking down on me. I think he was genuinely, as a parent, or in this case, a step parent, he was just concerned. And
Yeah,
what
really
that did,
caring.
yeah, he was probably had a lot of fear about it. But that created a fuel in me because I took it as, he's just, like, I took it as a challenge. And I remember telling him, well, I'll show you. No, it never got, like, to arguing. We just would challenge each other. I'd be like, well, I figured out this stuff on the computer. I'm going to go make websites. I'm going to do this. And, like, I taught myself programming. And yeah, and so that created a scenario where when I got into tech and was, at my second job making more money per year than he ever had, sitting at a computer doing something he couldn't really even get his head around. And he wasn't mad about it. I remember him telling me, he's like, you did something I didn't think you could do.
He was
And
so
so,
proud.
right. And so it wasn't like, it was definitely wasn't a toxic situation. It was a very encouraging. And later he would help me understand what it was like to, or what it meant to have meaningful relationships, what it meant to have relationships with people you don't agree with, and how to love people anyway. So I would say he by far is the most influential person in my journey. And to make it, even more interesting is that he was 6'2" and he was a really big guy.
But how amazing is that, that he's come into your life? He didn't have to
Right.
accept you. He didn't have to, and he's just taken you under his wing.
And he probably wouldn't have if you roll it back and and if my situation, me being born, doesn't create the rift it creates with my parents, they don't ever get divorced. I never meet him.
Correct.
Now, that's not to say my real dad couldn't have taught me some of those same lessons, but the fact of the matter is,
He didn't.
that was how it all played out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your hopes for the future, Kris? What changes do you want to see in the community and for people with disability?
I want us to see each other, and I want people to feel seen. What I mean by that is in the same vein of like, you got to go along with people you don't always see eye to eye with. We all need to be able to acknowledge one another. One powerful thing, well, probably one of the most powerful things I think about my journey, you guys asked about bullying earlier. Let me tell you this. I was never ever bullied by someone of minority, like a minority race. In fact, later in life, in high school and college, it was always the minority race who came to me and was like, "Hey, we got your back. Something happens, something goes down, we're here." In that moment, he saw me. That they didn't have the slightest clue about having dwarfism. They were all, average sized folk, right? They saw that I needed to be seen. What I hope for the world at a macro level is that people start to face whatever their obstacle is, because we all have one, whether we have a disability or not. There's some facet of our life that we don't like the color of our hair or color of our eyes, the way we're made. We have something. One of the most common comments or questions I get is like, "How'd you do it?" Or "I could never do that." And I always come back with, "Yeah, you could, because you got up this morning. There's something brewing or going on inside of you that you didn't sign up for. And you get to face it or not. And that's the work." And so, what I would love to do is have it play a small part in helping people see that.
Of that.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for Kris Hammons?
Yeah, so I work day to day. I still work in tech. I don't do programming anymore, but I work with a team of programmers here in the States. And so that's all fine and well and good. But I'm trying to speak more, hoping to get a couple of speaking gigs. I had to put some of that on hold with some hip replacement surgeries I had last year, but I'm trying to ramp that up. I'm working on a book. The working title right now is called Finding Grit. Kind of ties into both my story and what it means to show up to it.
Love the
So
hat.
I see, right.
I was
Thank
watching
you.
that. I'm wondering if grit means the same thing here, and I'm like, pretty much.
Yeah, right. And it's like, and as crazy as it sounds, like I want to go redefine what grit is. Because more often than not, you picture somebody white knuckling the steering wheel and hoping for the best. And that's a place of anxiety and fear. What I want people to get to is a place of presence. And because the place of presence where you face your hardest things. And so the future is hopefully speaking and writing on those things. I have a newsletter called Growing Grit. I'm in the process of relaunching. I launched it a couple years ago. Kind of didn't have a path. Now I'm really focused in on dads of like, how can I help dads grow their resiliency so they can grow in their kids? That actually starts with the dad doing their own work and showing up to whatever that hard thing they got going on. Because I have a theory that in this world of attention seeking, doom scrolling, and toxic coping mechanisms, we never are showing up, really showing up to that hard thing. So,
Absolutely. Kris, thank you so much for your time. We've loved speaking with you. We will put all your details on our show so that people can reach out if they so
yep.
wish. But it's been an honor to learn more about you and the disability, dwarfism, because it's certainly something that I did not have a lot of knowledge on. Thank you so
Look,
much.
you're welcome, and the pleasure has been all mine, Kate and Jen.
Thanks, Kris. You have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.